coping with a carbon copy. Here's your look at the Mattel Master Universe Revelation Faker. The Netflix animated series, Master Universe Revelation, is a radical return to Eternia, and the Masterverse collection brings the reboot to life with equally radical action figures. Each deluxe-styled figure is approximately 7 inches tall and designed with high level of detail fans will love. Featuring heroic warriors like He-Man and the villainous foes like the duplicate Faker, the character figures have more than 30 points of articulation and come with swappable hands and multiple accessories for epic storytelling and displays. I may not always be one to spot the differences, but I know a copycat when I see one. Before we get a closer look, though, at the Master Universe Revelation Faker, let's actually first figure out how tall the figure stands. While I'm doing this as well, I'd like to thank the folks over at Entertainment Earth that did provide the sample of Faker that we can have a look at in this review. I'll provide the link down below in the video description should you be interested to pick up one for yourself. Faker stands 6.5 inches in height. And what does that translate into centimeters? Well, you're looking at the figure being a little over 16 centimeters tall. Then bringing in some other He-Mans of equal size, this is what Faker looks like next to the original Revelation He-Man. And while it may look like Faker's slightly shorter, he's only slouching more so just because I've split the legs. If the legs were closer together, he'd be the exact same height as the original Revelation He-Man, because they are sharing all the same molds. They have tweaked and retooled some of the molding, more so in the top torso of Faker, but like from the waist down, it's identical. Maybe a little bit darker and a slightly different gold for the belt, but from like the waist down, exactly the same. Another He-Man, of course, we can also bring in the just recently looked at new Eternia He-Man. And as indicated by many of you that watched that review, you can in fact remove those bothersome shoulder pads. I did not like those shoulder pads. Simply just unstrap the back of his torso armor, and you can get those shoulder pads off and bid them a fond farewell. And while, yes, Faker is maybe just sharing the same thighs, knees, and lower legs, he has different boots, but of course, if you're going to be looking at from mold to mold, he's a little bit closer to being the original Revelation He-Man, and not as much like looking like the original or the new Eternia He-Man. Looking back, by the way, at the new Eternia He-Man, liking the way that that armor looks, I'm actually even considering taking that off and putting on this He-Man instead, just because I like the armor just a little bit more. Looking at the accessories to come included now with Faker, he comes included with a power sword. Although he probably will not be summoning the powers of Castle Grayskull. Like Faker himself, it probably is all show and no actual magic. The sword itself, by the way, I'm going to bring in the one that came included with the Revelation He-Man, is identical. Of course, now tweaked slightly with the additional orange. The orange also does carry over to his armor, and I'm glad to see that they actually did carry this over. Although I am missing the fact that this Faker doesn't have the blue skin. I hope that at some point they would actually re-release this figure in blue skin. But anyways, he does come included with the exact same power sword, just again, slightly different, and picking up the figure like the He-Man we looked at before. He doesn't have a holster necessarily, but I suppose you could slide it into the back, the strapped armor that he has on the back of his torso. The figure also comes included with his shield. The shield doesn't seem any different, although I don't have the other shield in front of me right now. It looks to be the exact same as the one that we got before, complete with the same straps on the back that's going to fit onto his forearm, providing, of course, you could probably remove that arm guard, which you can. Just take the hands off, the wrist off, and just slide that right off. And then, of course, you can put the shield. You could technically put the shield also on this side also. The figure has a couple of swappable hands. Currently, right now, he has one punching fist on the left, one grabbing hand on the right. If you did want to have a mirror copy of the gripping hand, then he also comes included with another version of the gripping hand. And he also comes included with a flat hand as well. Good for sliding underneath the straps of the shield. Changing out the hands are super easy. We're going to go ahead and just hold on to the forearm for dear life and just wiggle the hand off, removing the peg, freeing the peg from its socketed prison. Go ahead then and pop in the new replacement hand. There we go. And then we can go ahead and take then the sword, pry the finger slightly away from the palm, and then slide the sword inward. There we go. Wow, we have such a difficult time doing that. There we go. The figure also comes included with swappable armor. And I can think more than anything else, this is just a tease. I mean, it's nice to throw that orange armor in, but if you're not going to go the full distance of actually painting this guy blue, and I think if anything, it's just more a tease than anything else. In the Revelation cartoon, Faker is basically seen as more being just a clone of He-Man until finally his skin gets ripped away, revealing his sort of T-1000 skin underneath. One other thing that he does also have, too, is a swappable head sculpt, which for this, I'm going to bring back in the He-Man so you can see. It is a slightly different head sculpt. It seems that maybe, if anything, it's just the skin tone. Maybe it is identical. It seems like his chin is a little more chiseled, but again, it could just be my eyes playing tricks on me. I think like the hair looks a little bit better on Faker than it did on original He-Man. I kind of like the more blonder hair myself than the lighter blonde that they ended up giving him. And you'll see as well, something ain't quite right about Faker's face. He does have the glowing red eyes instead of He-Man's, I guess, more darker brown eyes that he had originally. You could technically, yeah, swap the heads out if you wanted to. You just go ahead and pop this off and replace it with the Faker head. But it's going to look a little strange and out of place. Probably helps also to put it all the way down on the ball joint. But the fact that he does have little red eyes looks a little off and out of place. Faker also does have, I'm just going to move this out of the way for a second, he does also have a full endoskeleton head if you prefer this instead. It actually kind of looks a little like Steel from the DC Comics. And again, if you want to get the full effect going, you can simply just take the head, which right now, let's just remove the sword. He has two, like I said, this is the basic, I'm posing as He-Man. And apparently Sorceress is none the wiser. You think she'd be able to sense that something ain't right, and that's not He-Man, and that's not Spikor, that's Skeletor and Faker. Anyways, you have two different variations of head sculpt. I mean, you can go with the more human face if you want. Then you have the half face, like Arnie would have in T2. And then if, again, you want a full metal treatment, you simply just pop the head off and you replace it with this head instead. To show you what that looks like, by the way, we can go ahead and just pop the head from the ball joint. There we go. And replace it with the metal head. It's a G.I. Joe character from Cobra, actually, called Metalhead. It seems like almost like the head is not quite the same coloring as the rest of his body. It's pretty close. It's pretty close. And then, of course, like you said, like as seen already, there's no way he's posing as He-Man at all. He's got ripped away areas of his skin, revealing the metal underneath. If you did want those swap out, just changing it out with the orange armor, we're going to go just detach the straps on both the sides. There we go. And just move this off and remove it completely from He-Man. To put on the other Faker armor, it's actually not quite the same type of armor. You're going to detach it from the bottom and attaches in two places. And then just put that over top. You may actually have to. Yeah, remove the head first. There we go. And then just replace it with this. Now, I prefer myself to have him actually displayed with the orange armor. The only thing about it, though, is, again, mentioned he doesn't have, sadly, the blue skin. Come on, Mattel. We already have this mold. I'd hate to think you're just wasting this mold on a single released figure. At some point, you got to think that they would be releasing a true blue Faker. Maybe not necessarily for the Revelation line. Why am I having such a struggle here? Maybe not necessarily for the Revelation line, but at the very most, I think that they probably could just re-release. Maybe they're like this body for like a Masterverse He-Man. Because we got like the new Eternian stuff coming out now. There we go. And then again, you can decide for yourself, human face Faker, half face Faker. Or again, if you want the full metal treatment, just popping the head back into place. You know, and again, like, it feels it's more a tease than anything else, because if I really did want to put this armor on, I would want him to have blue skin, and sadly, that's not the case. Anyways, looking at the way they've painted the body, it's actually a nice metal that they've decided to go with. And they haven't even simply just painted the parts that are steel. In fact, they've actually put in like an outlined edge of sculpting. So it actually does look kind of gruesome, really, when you look at it. You can see like where the bloodied line is, where the body would have just been torn right off. I think that's kind of cool. The lower half of the body, yes, as already mentioned, is the exact same as He-Man. His arm guards seem similar, if not for the fact that Faker's is slightly a little more gold of a yellow. The lower belts, if I can get his arms out of the way here, his lower belt is a little bit, again, of a darker, almost more of a metallic gold than the matte yellow that He-Man had. And it's also his loincloth seems slightly different also as well. I feel like I almost want to start dismantling these figures and building a close enough approximation of what I would want for a He-Man figure. Maybe I would like take the lower torso of Faker because he's got the slightly darker loincloth. The boots are about the same, so I wouldn't really have to worry about so much about that. And then maybe, if anything, I would take then I don't know. Maybe I would take the armor from the New Eternia He-Man, and I would just use that instead. For the articulation on Faker, let's start things first with his head sculpt. Now, with this type of armor on, the armor sits a little higher up on his body. It does mean that when you are rotating the head around, two things may happen. First of all, you're probably going to be rubbing against the plastic. Second of all, you're probably going to be popping the head off the ball joint. It seems to happen a lot with this particular figure, especially with this armor. The figure has an upper torso ball joint, as you can see, a lower torso ball joint also as well. The figure does have a very nice articulated point in his shoulders, allowing the figure to hinge his arms out at a comfortable, easy to manage 90 degrees. You can move, the arms all the way around. You're going to kind of be brushing against the grassing of the skirting of his armor there. But yeah, you can easily move his arms all the way around. The figure does have a bicep swivel, a double hinge on the elbow. Yeah, all the same as He-Man. Fancy that. Hands rotate all the way around. You can also hinge those back and forth. The legs do split out. Quickly just pointing out the fact I have a little smudge there onto the plastic. It's probably not on every faker that's out there, so don't start tracking down the fakers that have the little smudges. Very probably not going to find it. I just want to point that out. I don't know why I had to waste that part of the review just to point that out, but he does have a swivel 3/4 of the way up the thigh. The figure does also have a double hinge on the knee. Figure does have also a swivel in his boots, more just the way it's been assembled. And like the He-Man we looked at before, his feet angle back and forth this way, and also has a nice ankle pivot going there as well. Still, you got to question how Sorceress did not see that coming. I mean, she would probably sense, first of all, the evil energy emitting from Spikor to know that that's not Spikor, that's Skeletor. And then not to know that that's not He-Man. I mean, gotta really, if she was willing to let that slide, maybe she needed to let Castle Grayskull fall. Oh, that's so mean. Anyways, though, when it certainly comes to the figures, there's no fooling any of us. There's no way that could ever pose as He-Man. I do like in some sense that it actually has more of a Terminator look and vibe to it, the way they've ripped away the flesh. But again, it doesn't look like Faker. If it's, first of all, supposed to be posing as He-Man, it's failing. If it's supposed to be a Faker figure, it's also sort of failing at that as well. I mean, you can have it closer being He-Man by using this armor, but if I want to do this armor, then I really want the full blue Faker. Let's hope that's something Mattel makes down the road. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to question the claim that this is a true clone of He-Man when so much of He-Man now is gone. He's lost his hair, he's lost his face, and he's lost the skin that covers his torso. And of course, changing now the armor out, there's nothing left really of He-Man other than his arms, his loincloth, and his lower legs. I like that at least they did consider having swappable parts on Faker here, so if you did want to sort of start him off with a believable, at least enough face, minus, of course, the red eyes and the fact that, his torso's all missing skin, you can do that. Or you can have that half and half treatment, sort of like Arnie from Terminator 2, or you can go the full extreme of having him just with the robot face. I kind of like the robot face. Of course, by now it looks even more or less like He-Man. The thing that bothers me about this is the fact that Mattel had to include the Faker armor. He doesn't look like that, at least, well, he doesn't have that armor, certainly in the episode, that if they're going to throw that in there, don't tease us. At least that means, I hope that means at some point that Mattel's going to consider releasing a blue version of this same figure. Well, I guess it would be closer to the same mold as the original He-Man, just all done in blue. Because why would they waste the plastic to produce the armor that we see here if they're not going to use it again? Because for that, he doesn't look like this now in the episode. You would have to want to keep the original armor of He-Man on him to give him that true look of being a clone of He-Man. But if you're going to give him this armor, go the extra mile, Mattel, and at least produce a blue-skinned Faker. I have a soft spot, certainly, when it comes to Faker. I'm sure many of you already know that by now. If you are going to do that, Mattel, just please, at some point, release a blue Faker, as it should be. He's never supposed to really be a clone of He-Man. We all know that by now. Blue skin Faker never will ever pose properly as He-Man. Everyone will spot that a mile away. And yet, still, Sorceress doesn't know that that's He-Man. Or doesn't know that it's not He-Man and that Spikor is Skeletor. Sometimes Sorceress just misses the beat. Though I do like the look of this figure, I am still holding out hope that we do get ourselves a blue Faker. Let's hope that Mattel makes that happen. In the meantime, though, I'd like to thank the folks over at Entertainment Earth that did provide this sample of a not-so-cloning-looking He-Man, as they did provide the sample of Faker that we have a look in this review. I'll provide the link down below in the video description that will take you on over to Entertainment Earth's website. From there, if you are interested to pick this one up for yourself or any of the other Masters of the Universe Revelation figures, they have them also in stock. If you're also enjoying the content that you're seeing here on this channel and you haven't yet done so, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Turn the bell notification on and keep your cloning peepers peeled. It's not really technically a clone considering it's a robot underneath, but you get the idea. If you are new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. If you are new here, make sure you're turning on the bell notification. And if you are new here, making sure that you are coming back. While we have wrapped up the review for Robot He-Man, there will be more reviews, more Masters of the Universe reviews coming your way in the not-so-distant future. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.